What caused the collapse? Kirk.
Dina, this is where it happened right here. This section of canal bank, about 15 to 20 feet. You can see this soft dirt, which is what they've been packing and packing back onto this spot. The canal bank collapsed around 6:30 last night. Take a look at that big piece of concrete. That was actually wedged underneath the road, and the force of the water on the canal, which is on the other side over here, the force of the water pushed this out, and so now they are going to try to take this piece of reinforcing concrete and wedge it back underneath the road here where the tunnel is, so that water can continue flowing through the canal. Now, what happened last night? Water burst through the canal banks and flowed all the way down here to Westgate. Fortunately, there's a large field there which probably absorbed much of the water. The suspect, we are told, got out of his car, jumped off of the bridge and into the Rio Grande River, and then swam into Mexico. I don't know how far of a drop that is. Clearly a very good drop. This man did not want to be caught, swam into Mexico. We understand Mexican authorities did also come very close to the border of the bridge as well and have been involved in the search for this suspect on the Mexican side of the border. This, again, still a developing story. We are trying to piece together some of the basic facts on this in terms of exactly what precipitated this chase. Let me show you something. This has been part of the problem out here, this sandy terrain. We're going to go now to the video that we shot earlier in the day. You're going to see the smoke in the distance billowing up into the sky. Check the inspection stickers on any of these Carnival rides yourself. For example, they're right here, usually near the controller. Kenny's Funland Carnival. This inspected August of 2011, expires August of 2012. Now, I've checked most of the rides at this carnival and they're all exactly the same, all inspected last August, so they're all good until next August. Frankly, this is as close as we are going to get. This is still a horrible, nasty, toxic mess. It's smoking, it's burning, it's fuming. We can taste it, we can smell it, it's burning our eyes, and it's not just us. There are some folks that are half-mile away. They've been breathing this for 24 hours. So the area is almost perfectly made for smuggling. It's got landmarks, trails, and with all this brush and all these little side trails here, plenty of places to hide. So it's bad enough that, as you can see, Mrs. Moore said she clearly did not want a smart meter and she has one, but as if to add insult to injury, right next door, they still have one of the old analog meters. Zoller's family says after he left the bar, he tried to walk home maybe about a mile or so through this neighborhood to get to his mother's house, just a couple of houses from here. They say he probably fell down a couple of times on the way and eventually he collapsed here in this field on the southwest corner of the intersection of 9th and Sunset. What we don't know right now is exactly how long these people were in here for, but obviously they had settled in for what appears to be a pretty long stay. There were some large jugs of water, as you can see, plenty of trash, and a huge bag of rice here, so even for more than 40 people that we counted coming out, this might have lasted for at least a little bit of time. Perhaps not surprisingly, in this modern age, the origins of this horse thievery may not have begun here at the ranch, but instead the outlaws may have found their targets here, on the computer, where it turns out Trejo had listed the animals for sale on Craigslist. So Mr. Garza said that little pile of tires up on the front road wasn't really anything, and he was right. Check out this huge pile. We've got a nebulizer, some medical waste here, and then all these tires and this other trash, which continues back into this field. We've called some folks from the county. They say they're on their way over to check it out. I'm Kirk Chason in the Edit Bay, working on a story about a Mission woman still trying to get her car back from a repair shop. About 2 months after she paid $1,800 for a transmission, the woman says she's still getting the runaround from the shop owner.
Yo lo tengo aquí desde agosto.
No tiene que ver. Yo le voy a arreglar su... En 15 días...
Yo tengo que pedir right.
En 15 días le voy a tener su carro listo.
This is Carmona's repair shop in Mission. But hold on a second. Let's go back to the start. Belinda Villegas spent $1,800 for a transmission.
Took my car the 17th of August. I got it back the 23rd of August. Took it back the 30th of September.
We went to Carmona's for answers. My name's Kirk Chase. I'm for Channel 5.
Everybody's going to know that you didn't fix my car and they won't bring their car here anymore.
Eso es bien para usted.
Is that good for you? And you think with that it's going to end well?
Carmona says he has to order the transmission.
I got a Mini Cooper. I got a all VWs, you know?
Yeah,
all
you got
VWs.
guys working on
I got
stuff?
new Jettas.
We drove the car with Villegas. So it's that first bump, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the first one I can sell. I know there was a little problem there. Villegas says the ride gets worse as she drives the car more.
It's frustrating, it's annoying, it makes me really angry.
Trabaja bien, no trabaja
It seemed
bien.
okay, yeah, I mean, for the most part. You know, again, there was a little
It's
bump
just
there.
transmission, I mean...
You know, yeah. Carmona says he will find another transmission to put into Villegas' car. You wouldn't still be... So Villegas now waiting another 15 days to get that transmission. We'll stay on top of this one, let you know how it turns out. Live in the Edit Bay, I'm Kirk Chason. They travel by the thousands from South Texas and other parts of the country every year, heading north for work. Their jobs are hard, their pay is low. Migrant workers like Maria Ayala say there's also verbal abuse.
They even called us wetbacks. They did.
Ayala and these other workers from Mission went to work for a company called Pioneer Hybrid International in Indiana about 2 years ago.
It wasn't right.
This is the type of work Ayala and the others did. It's called corn detasseling, part of the harvesting process. These workers claim their bosses forced them to work in fields while those fields were being sprayed with pesticides.
2 days later, we started getting some rashes on the body, and we even told them, but they didn't even pay attention until one of them got real bad.
Under federal law, agricultural migrant farm workers don't get some protections that people in other industries do. No overtime pay is provided. Ayala and the others say they were told they would be paid about $75 for each acre they detasseled. Most workers finished about 2 acres a day. Instead of being paid by the acre, they say they were paid minimum wage. After the first week, they only received $113.
After all those hard working days we had, like waking up early, getting all wet, like feeling all sticky and everything, for $113, it's not fair.
The workers say they were promised a total of $3,000 to $4,000 for 3 weeks of labor. Instead, they received about $400 each.
He make us feel like we were very low. Very low.
We checked federal court records and found that Pioneer International has been sued by South Texas workers at least 15 times, dating back to 1979. In some cases, the company and the workers reached settlement agreements with confidential terms. We found this case filed in federal court in McAllen. Several workers claimed they were not properly paid for work they did in Iowa in 2007. Last year, a judge ordered the company and a recruiter to pay a total of $13,800. That was divided among several workers. Some were paid a little more than $2,000. Some minors, underage workers, received about $400. Attorney Edward Sandoval says the laws are stacked against workers like Ayala and the others. Plaintiffs cannot recover punitive damages. They are meant to punish defendants for wrongdoing. Workers can only recover the amount of money they would have been paid in the first place, called liquidated damages. Sandoval also says the fines for breaking the law are small.
As in for the Agricultural Act, it was passed in the early 80s, and the statutory damages are frozen, as in what they were back in the 80s, $0 to $500 per violation. There's been no stepping up because of inflation or passage of time.
Pioneer has a plant here in Weslaco. As you can see, the sign says no photos or video are allowed inside by employees or visitors. The company's headquartered in Des Moines, Iowa. No one would talk on camera, but they did release a statement. Because litigation is currently pending between TRLA and Pioneer, we believe the litigation is the correct forum to provide specific comment with respect to the allegations raised by TRLA. Pioneer denies the allegations and believes they are unfounded. We do have a long-standing, successful history of employing agricultural workers to work for Pioneer in Indiana and other states. Pioneer is not the only defendant in these types of lawsuits. In April, an Indiana company, Remington Seeds, reached a settlement with 91 people for work they did from 2006 to 2008. The company paid out more than $220,000 to settle the case. Remington's website says they treat their employees as family. The attorney for the 91 workers who sued says that was not true for her clients.
A lot of the workers went up there and got paid hardly anything and were stranded sleeping on the side of the road without even the money to come home. Some years they were also promised food on the trip, and while they were up there and they weren't, and they would go ask for food, they would ask the contractor for the food they'd been promised, and he would say, yeah, later, later, and so they were just going hungry without any transportation in these rural motels, without any way to even go to a grocery store and without any money to get food.
The settlement averages out to about $1,500 per worker after attorney's fees. While Remington does not have a plant in Texas, a judge ruled that workers can sue them in Texas federal courts because the company maintained continuous and systematic contact with the state. Remington released the following statement through their attorney. Remington Seeds utilizes independent contractors who employ in excess of 1,500 migrant workers each year who work in fields where Remington's corn is being grown, and 99% of them have had no complaints and enjoy the experience. Most of the contractors' workers come year after year to work in fields where Remington's corn is being grown. A judge also ordered recruiter Abel Mendoza to pay the workers $337,000 in the Remington case. Welch says they are trying now to locate him to collect. This is what you see at the front gate of a 200-acre ranch north of Rio Grande City. The U.S. Attorney's Office says the property is owned by this man, Carlos Alberto Oliva Castillo. Mexican federal authorities have named him the number 3 man in the Zetas drug cartel. He is accused in the August casino massacre in Monterrey. 52 people died at the Casino Royale. The U.S. Attorney's Office claims Oliva used this property to facilitate drug activities. They say he is responsible for organizing networks of individuals who drive vehicles loaded with cocaine. Federal documents only list a legal description of the property, so we came here to the Starr County Appraisal District Office for answers. U.S. authorities named the owner of the property as Carlos Ricardo Tamez Tirado. He's a doctor from the Mexican town of Diaz Ordaz. The government says Tirado was a straw purchaser, a frontman for Oliva. Starr County Chief Appraiser Humberto Sainz Jr. says the property has changed ownership several times since 2003 before Tirado bought it in 2007.
Miguel de los Santos, his wife, and Jose Eloy Pulido, his wife, there's a warranty deed with Vendors Lane where they sold to Carlos Ricardo Tamez Tirado.
The federal government claims the actual price for the property was $400,000, not the listed price of $125,000. The Starr County Appraiser's Office pulled the property up for us on a map, then showed us images on a computer. Yeah, let's go ahead and zoom in and see the properties there, the buildings. There's a pretty good sized building there, several outbuildings. And then you mentioned there was an antenna. Let's take a look at that. That's a pretty good sized communication tower. From the road, the communications tower is clearly visible. We can hear some voices in the distance, but one of the first things you notice about being out here is it's totally quiet. You'd never know anything out of the ordinary was going on out here, but prosecutors say it was behind these gates that Oliva would receive the money from his drug transactions. The U.S. Attorney's Office says Oliva paid for the ranch entirely with drug proceeds.